Yay.
How long did it take to build the characters in the book?
I was just talking to Layla. I started writing this book about 3 years ago, like to the month. And I started with, I just had, Catherine, my main character, and I had Cal, who I knew would be her foil and kind of antagonist. And that's all I had. And then I had to build out like her family and all the crew members, and that involved doing a lot of homework since I'm a huge NASA geek before this book, but now I know way more about NASA than I did before. But finding out like what made up a crew, like what types of roles people play, which is funny because I actually just read a review yesterday where they were blasting me for getting all that wrong, and I'm like, I did my homework. Could have been wrong, but I did my homework. So I started writing probably about 3 months after I started all that process.
Thank you.
It took me about 4 months to write the first draft. And then, oh God, I've lost count of how many drafts it went through. I think the draft that got published might have been 5 or 6. It's changed a lot since then. The first draft, I think, was 120,000 words, and the final draft was 93. So I did the thing where I wrote a lot of all the stuff that I needed to know, that between my editor and I, we realized that y'all didn't need to know that. It wasn't that exciting. I mean, it was exciting for me because I was learning all this great stuff, but I will talk about writing all day, by the way. So,
Do you save those scenes that get excised?
Do I what?
You save them?
Oh, hell yes.
In other books.
The basic rule of writing is don't ever throw anything out. Like, when I see writers on TV that are typing stuff and throwing it all away, I'm like, don't do that! Because you'll inevitably, this happened so many times writing the other drafts, I would remember a scene that got cut and be like, haha, it goes here! Or like some information in it. Like, wait a minute, I already made that decision about that character or that whatever. I don't remember what it was. Oh, it's in one of the cutscenes, so I could go back and find it, and I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. Save everything. My computer has like 6 different copies of this book. every time I started the draft, I would just basically copy it over and start cutting. So I still had the other one intact, which was also good in case I was like, wait, was I supposed to cut that? Oh, crap, I needed that. I can go back and get it. Copy and paste is my friend. Jason, I thought you had your hand up.
Yeah. Any ETA on audiobooks? I've got
They're out.
They're out.
Yes. They came out today. Oh my God, the audiobooks, that has been such an experience. First of all, there is no audiobook. When I first got the contract with Emily Bessler, it was supposed to be, I thought, a paperback book. And I was excited because it's a book. It's going to be on the shelves. Oh my God. And then at some point, the editor came back and we're like, okay, we're going to do it in hardcover. I'm like, you're what now? We're going to do it in hardcover. Okay. And then a couple months later, like every time I would get email from my editors, it would be like the most exciting thing ever. Like, well, once we had the draft, when I didn't have the drafts finished, it was like, oh God, what do I have to change now? But once the draft was finalized and everything, like every time I got an email, I was like, oh, what's going on now? What's going on now? And they emailed about the audiobooks. And I was like, audiobook? You're doing an audiobook? Holy crap! That's the coolest thing ever. And then one day I was sitting there and I got this email from my editor saying, hey, we've got the audiobook narrators. We're going to have 2. There are 2 narrators, one for Cal and one for Catherine. And we've got these narrowed down to these handful of narrators. Take a listen, hear their samples and tell us what you think about them. And, I listened and I found a couple that I really liked. And I said, I like these 2. And she was like, okay, thanks. And a couple minutes later, she emailed me. She said, okay, we sent them offers. And so, yeah, we'll let you know how that goes. I'm like, whoa, wait. You gave them the job because I liked them? And so that's my story about how I gave George Newbern, who was in Scandal and Father of the Bride and all these other things, a job. He is the narrator for Cal, and he's done a great job. And Lisa, oh crap, I've forgotten her name. And I don't have it anywhere either. Lisa something or another. I'll put it on Facebook. Y'all see it. She is the Catherine narrator, and she is amazing. I heard a snippet of her reading, and it was phenomenal. And she also follows me on Twitter and is a Star Wars geek like me, so it's great. So yeah, it is out now. It is down. In fact, I got speaking of email from my editors, I got my codes today. They sent me some codes and said, "Here, you can download free copies of it," which I didn't have a chance to do, but I'm gonna because I haven't heard George's reading yet. Yeah. So yes, it is out now. Anything else? Anybody?
The artist for the was there a certain artist for the
Cover?
That's really funny. A lot of books apparently go through a lot of different covers.
Yeah.
But they sent me this one, and we were all like, "Yes, we like that cover." The original title of the book actually was Supernova because I'm crap at coming up with working titles. The working title of my book right now is Lesbian Super Soldier Road Trip. So, that gives you an idea.
Awesome.
Oh, you guys weren't here for that part. You were late. I'll tell you all
That's what
about
you get
it
for
later.
being late.
So, I kind of suck at coming up with titles in general. So this title, actually, the editorial department at Simon & Schuster came up with this title. But because the original title was Supernova, it had to be one word. I was coming up with these fabulous poetic titles, and they were like, "No, one word. You get one word." So they came up with it. But I loved it. As soon as they said, "This is the title," I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's the title. Yes, that's perfect. Thank you." But the artist, we're not asking about the title. You were asking about the artist.
It's all part of it.
But yeah, so I got the cover, and I was like, "That's the perfect cover." The photographer, I don't remember who did the composite, but I've seen the original photograph. The photographer for the original photograph and the model for the original photograph had both contacted me on Instagram. And so they shared the original photograph with me, which is just really cool.
Wow.
Cool.
I can't remember his name. It's probably credited in some
Yeah,
book.
I figured it might be in there.
But as far as I know, just someone at the art department at Atria put it together, and I love it. And I had to steal the font. Well, I didn't steal it. I bought it. But the cover font, I bought it, so it's all over my website and also I'm a font geek. Yeah. So that's that.
Lisa Flanagan.
Yes, thank you. I'm like, Lisa, and her Twitter account wasn't helping because her Twitter account is something like LISSUR or something. Maybe it was her maiden name. I don't know. But I was like, Lisa something. I just talked to her the other day. So yes. And she's really amazing. It's exactly the voice I hoped for.
Do you have any clue where the original idea came from?
No. I mean, yeah. So, I got the basic, like I said, it was a couple of sentences, and I kind of came up with the rest of it with, some input, which is good because I was like, please, yes. I actually came up with, some of you have read the book, some of you haven't. The aliens that are in the book are, I think, a little unusual from what you would expect in a science fiction book. And yes, by the way, there are aliens.
I'm like,
I actually sat down in a brainstorming session with Sarah, my friend Sarah, and my friend Jack, who's in Canada and therefore can't be here. We sat there and chat, and I was like, okay, here's kind of what I'm looking for. Help me figure this out. And, they gave me a lot of biological stuff that I hadn't thought of. And the world, TRAPPIST-1F, again, this is based on what we knew when the planets were discovered. Your mileage may vary. NASA may have changed their minds. Those planets are what they call tidally locked, which is like the moon. So there's a light side and a dark side, like the Force.
More duct tape.
couldn't. I love having people I know in the audience. I get that. Crap, where's it going? Okay, so the planet is light side and dark side. And so I was trying to figure out, what kind of biology would you have on a planet? It would be wildly different. You would have, all nocturnal beings on one and, people that could stand intense heat and everything on the and where would people live? And we realized that if you lived on a planet like that, you would kind of live in the Twilight area that was like on the dividing line between the two, which is where our intrepid heroes set up their doomed habitat. So I mean, yeah, the ideas just kind of come from everywhere. Like, I mean, I was joking about the whole Thelma and Louise meet the Winter Soldier for the book I'm working on right now, but that's kind of literally, like I said in my little intro that most of you missed.
It's on video. I got it.
It's on video.
I got
This is why video
Tell them
is.
again how they missed that.
I cobble a lot of
Watch
ideas
the video.
together, and some of you may remember that I was extremely obsessed with Captain America: The Winter Soldier when it came out.
No.
And I'm not going to tell you that when I was coming up with who looked like who for this book, that Sebastian Stan is who Cal looks like. Anyway, so yeah, I was really obsessed with this idea. Like, I love spies. Spies are my jam. So I was coming up with this, the brainwashed spy. And I don't know how many of you have seen the movie The Long Kiss Goodnight. It's
Yes.
Gina Roberts and I think Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes.
And God, I loved that movie. And what I loved about it is like she had no idea that this had been her life. And so that was kind of my starting premise of we have a super spy who has no idea she was a super spy, who's also a super soldier and has all these abilities that she had no idea she had. And so it all kind of like aggregates like a snowball rolling downhill. And somewhere in there, they all became lesbians. And somewhere in there, I started like they're on a road trip because they have to go somewhere. And yeah, it really is like a snowball. Like you start with one little thing, and as it goes, stuff just piles on. And then what the writing process and the editing process, going back and like, I don't know, making a snow sculpture out of the snowball. Like, okay, that has to go. That doesn't work. And hopefully it doesn't all melt before you finish it. Which is why I wrote like 4 or 5 novels before I started selling them. And that's why, because I was really crappy at the whole, this part doesn't work because it would melt. And I didn't know what I was doing.
I had a question.
Sure.
You said recently that one of your teachers growing up was influential to you. And I forgot who you said.
I was really hoping to see if I could find her, and I haven't had any luck. My 7th grade teacher, my 7th grade English teacher, Mrs. Haynes at McPherson Middle School, which some of you went to.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
I wrote my first story, like aside from me staring at the typewriter when I was 5. I wrote my first story when I was like 11, 10 or 11. No, it was 11. Because it was 1983, because I was obsessed with Journey. And so Journey was the story. The first story I wrote was fan fiction, and I didn't know what fan fiction was. It's funny how many of my writing ideas come from my current obsession. That's a whole other story. So I'd written this story. I had this black and white composition notebook, and I had scribbled it out one summer. I don't even know how long it was, but it felt like it was forever because it took me forever to write it. And I was a teacher's pet, or most of you already know this. I was like a smart little kid, and I wanted all the teachers to love me. And I really wanted my English teacher to read my story. And so I brought her my notebook. And I was so scared. I don't know, I thought she was going to grade it or something. And she did actually go through and correct the grammar, which I wish I had that because that's so hilarious. I gave it to her, and it was the only copy I had of it, which now in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God, don't ever give anybody your only copy of anything. I had to wait like a couple of days for her to read it. And every day I'd come to class and, she'd say, no, I haven't had a chance to yet. And one day she came in and she brought, she had the notebook back. And I was like, she was really excited about it. She was like, this was a great story. I'm really excited to read it. Like, I don't know if she really thought this, but, she was really encouraging. She was like, this is really exciting. Please keep writing. This is a great thing for you to be doing. And I didn't get a lot of, my parents weren't big readers. So it wasn't like they were going to be super excited that I was writing books because they were too busy like, can you please stop reading and clean your room? No. Oh my God. I used to get in trouble so many times. My mom would send me to my room to clean and I'd be putting away my books. And I'd say, oh, wait, I remember this book.
That sounds familiar.
You know what I found out? Apparently that is one of the symptoms of ADHD. So yeah, they were
Used to
not
get in
like
trouble
really,
for reading at the dinner table.
they weren't like really big readers. So it was nice to have someone go, hey, no, this is great. We should do this. Yeah, Mrs. Haynes, God, I really wish I could find her and tell her that because
No, I think.
it was amazing. And Mrs. Rubin, my 8th grade English teacher.
I do remember
too,
Mrs. Rubin.
who sadly, I was so sad to hear that she had died.
Yeah.
Because she was another one who was like really, this is
She was
great.
a she was
You
a
should
great
do this.
lady.
I do remember Mrs. Rubin.
So are you like an outliner or a pantser or?
Oh God, I love this question. Okay, so I don't know if any of you have seen. There's this great, like back and forth with Stephen King and George R. R. Martin. They were like at a book conference and they just put them on the stage and let them go. And
That would have been good.
and Stephen King, I don't know if you know, he's a notoriously fast drafter.
Yes.
Like when he sits down to draft a book, in 3 months it's done. You know, I don't know how long his editing process is or anything, but like, boom.
And he does tons
It's done.
of pages too.
And you know, I can do that sometimes when things are going well. I can do that. Don't ask me how long I've been writing this current book. And George R. R. Martin, obviously, is
Right.
notoriously not.
Clearly.
And-
Clearly.
Total opposite. Huh?
And so, you know, they were talking back and forth about that, and you could see Stephen King talk about how fast he wrote, and you could just see George R. R. Martin's, like, his eyes were going like this. How do you do that? But Martin talks about being a gardener, that, you know, he plants seeds and, you know, he kind of knows what's going to grow, but not necessarily like what shape it's going to take. And I used to be a pantser. You know, I used to be like the second or third novel I wrote, I had an opening scene. I wrote my opening scene because I realized I'd never written combat before, and I wanted to write a fight scene. And I'm writing my fight scene like, oh, this is fun. This is a lot of fun. Crap, there's a novel that goes with this. Oh, no. So I wrote my second novel, which I think some of you might have read, but most of you are not going to read because it's really bad. See above me sucking at writing straight fantasy. Yeah, it's really bad. But it was that was me like, I don't know what's going to happen. I didn't know I was going to write a novel until I wrote this scene and realized the main character had all this backstory that now I needed to go through. So that was my thing. I was like, I'm just going to write and go where it goes, and my characters will tell me what to do. And that's like a huge pet peeve of mine now because I've changed. So yeah, that was like I would just go wherever, and that was why I could never edit anything. Because I didn't know what went where or what was going. Like I couldn't remember half of what I'd written half the time because it was just all top of my head writing stuff. And the point I've reached now, the book I'm working on now, I sat down and did a hard outline, like scene by scene by scene.
Mm.
Now, what will happen and what has already started to happen is I'll drift from that. You know, because like, oh wait, you know that plot point made a lot of sense when I was writing it, but now that I'm into it, yeah, no, that doesn't work. Oh crap, I gotta come up with something else. So I'm definitely more planning oriented now, but it's pretty flexible. Like I don't write an outline and be like, no, it's in the outline, I have to write it. And if I did, it would probably be in the editing process of, no, this has to go because it's the wrong thing. The other thing about planning that I've discovered is it really keeps you from veering off into wrong directions. Like when I was writing just off the top of my head, I would write things and suddenly realize I'd spent the last 50 pages talking about something that had nothing to do with the rest of the story. And when you plan it more, you kind of work through all that in your head before you start investing all that time fleshing out the whole scenes. You can kind of go, oh yeah, you know, that scene doesn't really go there. You know, and so instead of writing like 5,000 words, I've got, 500 words on my computer. Like, yeah, okay, no. So I'm lazy, and so it's actually much easier.
If a vessel would become a movie,
Oh God,
Are there
from your
some-
mouth to Hollywood's ears.
is there any actors or
Yes.
actresses that you would
Yes,
that
yes.
you
In
would
fact,
prefer?
I have a Pinterest board of who I would
Yes.
cast. In this, none of you will be surprised to find out the NASA administrator is Mark Hamill.
Okay.
Shock.
Yeah. He's like the older guy, and he's about the right age, and
Yeah.
so yeah. She's a little too old now, but I would really love like Paget Brewster as Catherine. She was kind of who I was thinking of, and if you don't watch Criminal Minds, you don't know who she
Oh, I
is.
watch it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Prentice from Criminal Minds. I love her, and
Yeah,
she's like
she is.
exactly the kind of
Yeah.
character that I was looking for. I think, like I said, Cal would be Sebastian Stan, although he's kind of aged out of that now too, because it took me so long to write the book. Yeah, I mean, no one will ever. I don't know. I say no one would ever consult me on casting, but they also like here, pick out your audio.
Yeah,
Also,
sure.
maybe I don't know.
It's a nice dream.
I don't know what time it is. I don't know. It's 8.
Okay.
So, anything else from anybody? I mean, like I said, they close at 9, but otherwise, I'm happy to sit here and talk about writing all night.
I gotta go